Angel Reese has taken this season off to focus on her off-court endeavors and to avoid these losses that the Chicago Sky are accumulating, to avoid them appearing on her resume. Angel Reese doesn't really care about basketball.
Angel Reese has vanished, not physically, but from the basketball court, where she's supposed to be leading the Chicago Sky. While her team drowns in an ocean of losses, sitting at a dismal 8-23 record, their supposed star player has been nowhere to be found.
Angel Reese, and I'm saying this with my chest out, I think she's quit on the Chicago.
Since the All-Star break. The official story? A mysterious back injury with zero details, zero timeline, and zero transparency.
This season, probably not.
But here's what's really going on. Angel Reese has quit on her team, and the breadcrumbs she's leaving on social media tell us
she's been claiming a back injury
that the Chicago Sky organization doesn't want you to hear. This isn't just about a player sitting out with an injury. This
something she struggled with here or there. All we've heard is day-to-day.
Is about strategic career preservation, calculated silence, and a young star who may have already mentally checked out of Chicago while plotting her escape route. The evidence is mounting.
I just don't think is the case, especially when your team is as bad as it is. Like, absolutely just thinking it up constantly. Like the Chicago Sky.
The timing is suspicious. And by the end of this deep dive, you'll understand why Angel Reese's disappearance might be the most calculated move in recent WNBA history. Let's start with what we know for certain. Angel Reese played her last game right before the
Brittany Sykes got traded. Brittany Sykes getting traded is pretty big. And if you guys didn't see, Brittany Sykes put out an Instagram post. And she ended it with like, P.S. It was something along the lines of like, P.S. taking
WNBA All-Star break. The Chicago Sky were already struggling, sitting well below 500, and their playoff hopes were fading faster than a summer sunset. Then,
taking things into your own hands. So basically, she made it clear she wanted out. Like, that she either asked for a trade or demanded a trade. However,
almost like clockwork, once it became mathematically clear that the Sky weren't going anywhere this season, Angel...
If you guys didn't see it, the end of it was like, obviously it was something like that. Angel Reese, heavy with the...
Reese suddenly developed a back injury that no one can explain, no one can diagnose, and no one can put a timeline on. Think about that timing for a second. This isn't some freak accident that happened during a crucial playoff push. This isn't a warrior getting hurt while trying to carry her team to glory. This is a calculated exit right when the going got tough, right when every game became another potential embarrassment, and right when
this makes it sound
been harshest on a struggling star player. The Chicago Sky's front office has given us exactly 2 words to explain Angel Reese's absence: back injury. That's it. No detail.
She putting it out though. Now, some people are like, man, that ain't nothing. She just supporting Brittany Sykes and all that. Angel Reese dropping way too many clues
about when it happened, how it happened, or what specifically is wrong. Compare that to how injuries are typically handled in professional sports, and the silence becomes deafening. When Caitlin Clark got injured earlier this season,
she was dropping way too many hints. Angel Reese is not a slow child. She knows exactly what she's doing. What do y'all want me to know?
Her team immediately provided detailed information about the diagnosis, the test results, a comprehensive recovery plan, and even floated a potential return date in late August. That's transparency. That's how you handle a legitimate injury to your star player. But with Angel Reese, we get nothing.
She identified once they lost Vandersloot, their point guard, early in the year, and once they started getting their brains beat in, hey, we're not going to win anything this year. I'm not putting these L's on my resume. I'm going to have an excuse.
No MRI results, no specific diagnosis, no projected recovery timeline. Just the same copy and paste response from coaches and team officials. She's day-to-day, focusing on her rehab. Day-to-day has now stretched into weeks, and those weeks are turning into months. When reporters press for more information, they're met with the same vague non-answers that sound like they're being read from a script designed to reveal absolutely nothing. This lack of transparency isn't just unusual, it's unprecedented for a player of Reese's caliber. Star players don't just disappear without detailed injury reports, especially when their absence is costing their team games and potentially playoff positioning. The fact that the Chicago Sky organization seems content to let this mystery drag on without explanation suggests they're either complicit in whatever Angel Reese is really doing, or they've completely lost control of their franchise player. Meanwhile, the Chicago Sky have been getting absolutely demolished without her. Their record has plummeted to 8 wins and 23 losses, putting them 15 games under 500. They're not just losing to good teams. They're getting blown out by the bottom feeders of the league. The Indiana Fever recently destroyed them in Indianapolis. And guess who wasn't even in the building? Angel Reese. If this was really about a legitimate injury requiring careful rehabilitation, wouldn't you expect to see your star player supporting her teammates from the bench, especially during crucial games? The Sky's performance without Reese tells an interesting story that her supporters love to twist. They point to Chicago's 1-10 record in games without her as proof of her value, as evidence that she's irreplaceable. But here's the thing, that record isn't proof of her greatness. It's proof that this team was poorly constructed from the beginning. A truly elite player doesn't just abandon ship when things get difficult. They find ways to contribute, even if they can't play. They show leadership, they provide guidance, they demonstrate commitment to their teammates and the organization that's paying them millions of dollars. Instead, Angel Reese has chosen a different path. She's chosen to protect her personal statistics and her individual brand at the expense of team chemistry and organizational loyalty. By sitting out the remainder of this disastrous season, she ensures that Chicago's historic collapse doesn't get attached to her name. Her shooting percentages remain frozen at their current levels, her rebounding numbers stay intact, and there's no fresh footage of her struggling through this team's systematic failures. This is pure Kawhi Leonard territory, except somehow even more calculated. At least Leonard had legitimate, documented injury concerns that everyone could see and understand. Angel Reese's situation is wrapped in mystery and maintained through organizational silence that benefits no one except Angel Reese herself. But if you really want to understand what's happening here, you need to look beyond the official statements and examine what Angel Reese is actually communicating through her social media activity. Because while her mouth stays shut about her injury and her future, her fingers are doing plenty of talking on Instagram. When Brittany Sykes got traded from Washington to the Seattle Storm, she posted a message on Instagram that ended with a telling postscript. Making decisions for yourself is a liberating feeling. It was a clear signal that she had either requested or demanded her trade, that she had taken control of her own destiny rather than waiting for her organization to make moves for her. Angel Reese's response to that post. She commented with emphasis on that exact postscript, essentially co-signing Sykes' message about taking control of your own career. That's not a coincidence. That's not just supporting a fellow player. That's Angel Reese publicly aligning herself with the concept of players taking their futures into their own hands, even if it means forcing their way out of uncomfortable situations. She's telling anyone who's paying attention that she understands and supports the idea of players making unilateral decisions about their careers. The social media breadcrumbs don't stop there. Angel Reese has been strategically liking and commenting on posts about players needing to make the best decisions for their careers, often adding emojis that her followers interpret as coded messages. Some see subtle shade thrown at the Chicago Sky organization. Others see quiet warnings about what's coming next. Either way, it represents a dramatic shift from the kind of team-focused messaging you typically see from players who are committed to their current franchise. Her Instagram feed has undergone a noticeable transformation since her mysterious injury began. Gone are the behind-the-scenes practice shots, the locker room selfies with teammates, and the game day hype posts that used to dominate her content. In their place, we're seeing likes and comments on photos of former teammates wearing new jerseys, players enjoying life away from their previous organizations, and content that suggests she's mentally already moved on from Chicago. Observers have also noted changes in her following patterns. She's engaging less with Chicago Sky content and more with players from big market teams and championship contenders. These might seem like small details, but in the WNBA's tight-knit community, these social media signals carry significant weight. Players, agents, and front office executives all pay attention to this kind of digital body language, and Angel Reese knows exactly what messages she's sending. This isn't random social media activity from someone who's simply injured and focusing on recovery. This is deliberate, calculated communication from a player who's already mentally moved on from her current situation and is laying the groundwork for her next career move. Angel Reese is too smart and too media savvy to accidentally be dropping all these hints. She knows exactly what she's doing, and she's doing it on purpose. The broader context makes her behavior even more understandable, even if it's not necessarily admirable. The Chicago Sky haven't just been bad this season. They've been organizationally dysfunctional since their championship run ended. There's been no clear rebuilding plan, no sense of developing a sustainable core, just constant roster shuffling and lineup experiments that never quite work. The team lost their starting point guard early in the season, and rather than adapting and fighting through adversity, the entire structure collapsed. In the WNBA's unique ecosystem, where the league is small and every player's reputation matters enormously, being associated with organizational failure can have devastating long-term consequences. Unlike in the NBA, where superstars can weather a few bad seasons while still commanding maximum contracts and endorsement deals, WNBA players have much less margin for error. A few losing seasons can seriously damage a player's market value and limit their future opportunities. Angel Reese understands this reality better than most. She's watching her contemporaries like Caitlin Clark build their brands and their legacies while she's stuck on a team that's becoming the laughingstock of the league. The longer she stays associated with Chicago's dysfunction, the more it potentially hurts her individual brand and her future earning potential. By strategically removing herself from this situation, she's protecting her statistical profile, avoiding additional footage of struggling performances, and creating distance between herself and organizational failure. It's a calculated business decision disguised as an injury management situation. She's essentially telling the basketball world that Chicago's problems aren't her problems, and she's not going to let their organizational incompetence drag down her individual reputation. This strategy becomes even more apparent when you consider how other injured stars have handled similar situations. When legitimate injuries occur, players typically remain visible around the team, attending games, participating in team meetings, and providing moral support even when they can't physically contribute. Angel Reese has essentially disappeared entirely, creating both physical and emotional distance from a franchise that's spiraling out of control. The comparison to Caitlin Clark's injury situation makes Angel Reese's behavior even more suspicious. Clark's team provided immediate transparency about her diagnosis, her recovery process, and her expected timeline for return. There's been clear communication, visible rehabilitation efforts, and obvious attempts to keep her connected to the team even while she recovers. The contrast couldn't be more stark. Angel Reese's camp has provided none of that transparency, none of that visibility, and none of that organizational connection. Instead, we get vague statements about day-to-day progress and mysterious rehabilitation that no one can see or verify. It's almost like they want people to speculate about what's really happening because the speculation serves Angel Reese's interests better than the truth. The WNBA landscape is changing rapidly, with more players recognizing that they don't have to accept bad organizational situations just because they were drafted or traded somewhere. Stars across the league are taking more control over their careers, demanding trades when situations aren't working, and prioritizing their individual success over organizational loyalty. Angel Reese appears to be positioning herself as the next player to take control of her destiny, regardless of what Chicago wants or expects. Her apparent strategy makes perfect business sense, even if it raises questions about competitive integrity and team loyalty. She's protecting her brand, preserving her statistics, and positioning herself for a potential fresh start with a more competent organization. The Chicago Sky's continued struggles without her only reinforce the narrative that she's too valuable to waste on a dysfunctional franchise. Looking at all the evidence together, the suspicious timing of her injury, the complete lack of transparency from her camp and the organization, her strategic social media activity, and the broader context of Chicago's organizational problems, it becomes difficult to believe that this is simply about a back injury that's taking longer than expected to heal. This feels like a carefully orchestrated exit strategy designed to minimize damage to Angel Reese's reputation while maximizing her leverage for future moves. Whether that means demanding a trade this offseason, signing elsewhere when her contract expires, or simply maintaining distance until Chicago gets their act together, she's clearly preparing for life beyond her current situation. The timing, the secrecy, the social media breadcrumbs, and the organizational silence all point toward a player who's already mentally moved on from Chicago, even if she hasn't officially requested a trade yet. Angel Reese is too smart, too ambitious, and too aware of her market value to simply accept being part of a historically bad season without some kind of strategic response. What happens next will likely depend on whether the Chicago Sky can convince her that they have a real plan for improvement, or whether Angel Reese decides that her future lies elsewhere. Based on everything we've seen so far, it seems like she's already made that decision and is just waiting for the right opportunity to make it official. The question isn't whether Angel Reese will demand a trade or leave Chicago when her contract allows. The question is whether she's already effectively quit on this organization and is just waiting for the paperwork to catch up with reality. From where I'm sitting, watching all these puzzle pieces come together, it looks like Angel Reese checked out of Chicago the moment their season went sideways, and everything since then has just been damage control and exit planning. What do you think happens next? Does Angel Reese demand a trade this offseason? Does she try to stick it out and see if Chicago can turn things around? Or does she run out her contract and leave as a free agent? Drop your predictions in the comments because this story is far from over, and the next chapter might be even more dramatic than what we've seen so far.